Alright, I hope I'm live. Hello everyone, welcome to the Academic Alehouse. I am, excited to see you all here. I'm not prepared. I was caught up in something. I do have alcohol though. Fuck. What else? Oh, alright. So, now that I am well prepared, Caesar has y'all probably heard that, but Caesar has just texted me that he can join me. So, let's get him in here. But alright. Well, I might as well. We're figuring out technical difficulties. The biggest news of the week: Bernie Sanders has suspended his presidential campaign. This is not shocking. He was not doing very well after Super Tuesday. Super Tuesday 1 and Super Tuesday 2 basically killed any chance Bernie Sanders had of winning. The man's delegate count has dropped, I think, 300 behind Biden on the last numbers I heard. So, yeah, he's done. The Bernie Bros, of course. I think I'm gonna go into salt mining, but the Bernie Bros are understandably upset. And I watched a TikTok today. No, I don't have the app. I was scrolling through Twitter. I have more class than that. Uh, I have more class than that than to have TikTok on my phone. Um, but I basically had there was basically a TikTok of a guy saying that, oh, Bernie Sanders only needs 53% of the vote nationwide to win. And he was basing this off the New York Times numbers, and I was sitting there like, dude, Bernie Sanders isn't polling that well. Joe Biden's got the nomination locked up. And of that, I have zero doubt. I just had my Discord up on screen. Hooray. But Biden's got the nomination locked up. Bernie Sanders is just hanging on. I don't know why he's still in the race at all. He should drop out. But he won't, because Bernie Sanders desires to hang on for whatever reason. For whatever reason, Bernie Sanders has decided to hang on to the last minute. The best he can hope for is maybe, and this is in the best case scenario, he moves it, he wins, he sweeps the remaining states, and hopes he's close enough to to basically talk his way into a brokered convention. A brokered convention, by the way, would be awful for the Democrats. It would make them look horrific. It's a bad move. Bernie Sanders either has two options. He either makes his party look extraordinarily weak, like there's no unity within the Democratic Party at all, and basically kills any chance they have, any small, and I do mean small, well, like measured in inches, measured in centimeters small, like measured in centimeters small chance of winning the presidency from Donald Trump. But it, like, a brokered convention kills that. Sorry, I was lost my train of thought. A brokered convention kills the DNC's chance of the DNC's hope of walking away with the victory in November. Or he breaks one of his promises and drops out and looks like the bad guy to an entire generation of uh, communists. Let's call them what they are. They're communists. And thus they use it as an excuse to commit terrorism. Biden, meanwhile, right now is debating on whether is moving among is probably searching for a running mate. He's basically, the Biden campaign hasn't confirmed, but general suspicion is it's going to be Kamala Harris. General suspicion is it's going to be Kamala Harris, which, if that happens, I will post a video that same day because I called it. Someone pick up that phone because I fucking called it 6 months ago. I called this in August last year on our first or second episode. Called it then and there. Kamala Harris and Biden would be the ticket for 2020 because she's black, she's female, and she's black and female. That's it. She's black, female, and far left. That's all he needs to secure the far left's vote. She gets Warren's audience on side. She gets the minority vote, and most people, if they're smart, will, and the smarter members among the public will look at Kamala Harris and say, look at Joe Biden, look at his health, look at how he's behaved himself recently. If he wins the presidency, God forbid, he won't make it a year. That would be my best prediction. He won't make it a year. Kamala Harris will he'll start taking time off. Like, he'll start getting vacations and start walking away from duties the president should be taking care of. Kamala Harris will probably pick someone like Elizabeth Warren to sort of it'll probably fall to whoever the Speaker of the House is, or in the Senate, to someone in the Senate or the House to sort of step into Kamala Harris's role as vice president, as her representative, and then steadily she'll take on more duties. We will probably see her give the State of the Union address. Biden will come out for big events, the State of the Union, any public appearances that need to be doing. But generally, I think we'll see Kamala Harris steadily taking over. We'll hear rumors and probably see her more than Biden in that first few months after Biden wins. Then Biden will die. Biden will die in office, and she will take on the duties of president. And that is how the Democrats will get their first female president, not by election, but by scheming underhandedness. Whoop-de fucking do. Meanwhile, should the Republicans lose in 2020, I don't think they'll recover. They'll take the temperature of the populace and wonder what the fuck just happened. Because some senile old man just kicked the asses of arguably the most popular president for for 3 decades. Yeah, if the Republicans lose, I don't think they'll like I don't think they will react well. That being said, I suppose we should talk about the elephant in the room. I didn't address it last week, but I'm going to address it this week because this is this is this is funny to me. Bill Maher goes on despicably racist rant against China over coronavirus by Marlo Stern. Supposedly this guy has a master's degree in journalism. By the way, Sargon, I'm stealing your content. I regret to inform you that Bill Maher is at it again. At what? On Friday night after a softball interview with New York City Mayor Bill de Blasio and a few other chummy cats, the real-time host aired his latest New Rules segment, and it was focused on how Americans should be able to call COVID-19 the Chinese virus. Scientists who are generally pretty liberal have been naming diseases after the places they come from for a very long time. He said, Zika is from the Zika forest, Ebola is from the Ebola River, Hanatavirus is from the Hantan River, there's the West Nile virus, guinea worm and Rocky Mountain spotted fever, and of course the Spanish flu. Yes, Maher does not even know that the Spanish flu did not originate in Spain. Also, it occurred over a century ago and was not named such at a time when people were being targeted in racist attacks, but more on that later. Because nobody in the 1920s, in 19 teens and 20s was racist. Absolutely nobody. There was not a racist man to be found. The great like the greatest nation that never happened. Oh no, it's not the greatest nation. It's Birth of a Nation. Birth of a Nation that didn't happen. What insane caveman world are you living in? There's no racism ever. Especially so why should China get a pass? Yes, that's a good question, Mr. Stern. Why does China get a pass? They're a fascist communist state. I mean, they are the end stage of all ideologies save capitalism, and even capitalism has its ditch of accept democracy, and even democracy has its flaws. But very rare, but yet I've yet to see a democracy turn into a well-functioning democracy turn into a ruled people dictatorship. A dictatorship ruled by the people. Nope, never seen it. Normally, when democracy fails, it's because A, people stop voting, B, people stop paying attention to what goes on in their country, or C, the government actually passes laws to start making things, to start giving themselves unprecedented power. Or, looking at you, Virginia. This virus is not constructed by a country or race, but just as stupid to call it the Milan virus. No, that would be way stupider because it did not come from Milan. And if it did, I guarantee it would be called the Milan virus. Jesus fucking Christ, can't we even have a pandemic without getting offended? No, Milan is not a country. What irrelevant question? Why should China Congress Marketing. Yeah. Why does China get a pass? Why does communist China, who has evident, who has objectively taken over and infested the World Health Organization with sympathizers, is buying Africa, is buying out Africa, is to essentially spread communism there, God help them, and is committing a genocide of their minority Muslim population. Rumor has it they're being very racist towards the blacks, towards black people. Why does China get a pass? Why does China get a pass when this is their fault? He added seriously, it scares me that there are people out there who would rather die by the virus than call it by the wrong name. This isn't about vilifying a culture, it's about facts. This is about life and death. Who out there would rather die by the virus than call it the wrong name? What the hell is he talking about? He's talking about people like you who know about this virus, who know that this is China's fault, who know for a fact, we know for a fact that China could have stopped this. This would not have been a problem. This would have been as bad as it would have been about as relevant as the Ebola epidemic in like the mid 2010s, where there were minimal cases because the World Health Organization and everybody else basically pointed at it and said, "All right, we're doing this, 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 and this." China decided, China, because it must maintain control of its populace at all times, because they cannot allow freedom, because freedom is bad, because bureaucracy moves slowly, and because top down systems don't work, not in the way they're intended, at the very least. China did nothing. China hid this. China lied to the rest of the world. Instead of doing something about it, instead of saying, hey, we lost control of a situation, instead, but that's the thing. Hey, we have this virus, that's transferred to a person. Here's how you identify it. Here's what it is. Blah 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 blah. But that means the rest of the world gets to control the narrative, and China, because it is a fascist state, must control the narrative, not for its own not just for its own people, but for the rest of the world. The PC he also invoked the PC police for good measure, saying, the PC police say it's racist to attack any cultural practice that's different from our own. I say liberalism lost its way when it started thinking like that. I agree. I agree with Bill Maher. I don't think the man's very funny, and I agree with Bill Maher. The man is correct on all counts. Why does China get a pass? Why are we letting the fascist state of China get a pass on having this slap in the face? Honestly, we should call it the China virus because of what they've done, because of their failures, because of their need to control the narrative. If we should be slapping this label on every case of coronavirus. Instead of calling it coronavirus, call it the China virus. Say, you, sir, have contracted China virus. There have been 100,000 deaths of China virus in the United States. I don't know that's true. Don't listen to me on that one. Italy has been infected with the China virus, because every time you say it, it slaps the communists in the face, and that is just enjoyable. There was more, of course, like comparing animals sold at Chinese wet markets to nuclear bombs and various other dog whistles that would be more at home on Fox News. Okay, Google pictures of Chinese wet markets. No, now that you're horrified, think about. I want you to Google the OSHA regulations for the storage, for safe storage of meat products. Once you're done reading through a mountain of bureaucratic shit, understand that that's just one organization that places like Walmart, HEB, Walmart, HEB, your corner store, every restaurant you've ever been to, McDonald's, Sonic, Jack in the Box, Whataburger, every single one, they all have to follow these regulations. All of them, without exception, and they can be shut down if they don't. Meanwhile, in China, and the reason is because animals carry viruses, carry bacteria that can and have, in times past, the past, jumped from them to humans. It is wholly unset. Chinese wet markets are literal bombs, viral and bacterial bombs, pandemic bombs waiting to go off. It takes one. It only takes one. One mutation, one slip, and suddenly, the world, half the population of the world is dead. The reemergence of the Black Death on a global scale. Imagine that. And this is one of the reasons that if you look into it, historically speaking, America, the Americas, North and South America, have no big animals. They don't. They don't have big herd animals. They had bison, and that was about it. They had bison, that was about it, and alpacas in the South, in South America. That's it. These are not domesticatable. Well, these are not domesticatable animals. You couldn't, they couldn't domesticate them in ancient times. One of the reasons that like mad cow disease and shit like that one of the reasons why it's migrated so much, one of the reasons that Europe, if you look into it, has a lot of sickness, a lot of disease. It's because people slept. You're a peasant because peasants slept with their animals in their home because otherwise they'd get stolen or eaten. Like close contact with animals of any kind, with herding animals, with animals, actually, really animals of any kind, can to leads to disease disease transfer, and especially dead ones. Especially dead ones. Like he's right. Chinese wet markets are basically viral bombs waiting to go off. Mark conveniently failed to mention the reasons why many politicians are advising against calling the Chinese virus, naming it after an entire country, naming it after an entire country. The numerous hate crimes that have been reported against Americans in the wake of COVID-19, storefront windows of Asian American owned businesses have been smashed and vandalized. Ways to prove it: people have been regularly accomplished with racists go back to China. The FBI has warned of a surge in hate crimes against Asian Americans. Well, they also warn, yeah, to 100 a day in the midst of a pandemic. Uh-huh. To all that, Mark concluded, the answer is we should blame China, not Chinese Americans, but we can't stop telling the truth because racists get the wrong idea. There are always going to be idiots out there who want to indulge in their prejudices, but this is an emergency. Yes, Milmar, there will always be idiots out there who will indulge in their prejudices, and tonight that idiot was you. Please. Please. He's Mr. Stern. Die in a fire. Alright. Let me get Caesar in on this, because he's finally ready.
Hey there.
Hello.
Hey, can you hear me all right?
Yep.
All right. Just finished watching your little rant about China. Yeah, so
Which
this
one?
is
The one on pandemic? The one on their wet markets, or the one on
uh
slapping the communists in the face?
probably the first one.
Ah.
Whichever rant you had like 15 seconds ago.
Oh, that would be the pandemic one.
All right. Yeah.
All
So
right.
this is the standard for Discord from now on. We get these ugly little boxes around our logos.
Yeah, I'm not sure I like it.
Yeah, I've seen our EFAP and Smudcast talk about it.
Yeah. Now we get to rip them off.
Yep.
In fairness, I ripped off the Bill Maher article from Sargon, so Uh,
Oh,
here's the
at
watch
least
together.
yeah, at least our guests don't get to see our ugly little logos. Actually, do you know if is it possible to put that on the screen?
Hold on.
Welcome.
All right. Let me see. Not really.
No big deal. So, what are we going to be watching?
We're gonna be watching a Hellogreedo video.
The new one about continuity.
Yep.
So once again, we're ripping off EFAP and Smudcast.
Yes.
Okay.
Chat is unusually inactive tonight.
Well, we usually only have like one person.
That's true.
Plus, they probably didn't get any notifications. I never did.
Oh, you didn't get a notification. That's weird.
Nope. I only know that it's on because you texted me.
There we go. Now it's in full screen.
Welcome to the sandbox.
All right.
Hey.
All right. So let's start. I'm going to fast forward about 25 seconds because it's literally just him going, it's him being stupid.
Yeah. Also, we probably won't get very many viewers tonight since most of our subscribers are fans are watch Beauty in the Beta. That's at 8 o'clock on Sundays.
Yeah. I mean, normally we tried doing this on Saturdays, but now I work on Saturdays, so
Think we can make Friday work?
Friday I also work.
Yeah, that's true.
Monday I don't though. Maybe we'll try Monday.
Yeah. Well,
Detail.
Monday, I probably won't be able to take part in. I mean, once I can start going back to work.
All right.
Oh well. Well,
You're not allowed to do that. You're not allowed to do that. When does canon, when does a strict adherence to details pump the brakes on creative freedom? Because
It doesn't. It all depends on how you work on it.
Yeah, I mean, people are stingy about consistency. There's nothing wrong with it inherently.
it is a give and take, right? You want your creators to have as much freedom as they possibly can, and you don't want stories to get bogged down and held back by details that often come from non-film material. I'm bringing
Okay. But what if I'm using that as evidence for a wider point? Okay, let's think about it this way. How long is Harry Potter's hair?
Hmm. Shit, I don't know.
Exactly.
Like a bowl cut.
Exactly. Like, if you were to just go off the books and not ever see the movies, you would not care. It mentioned that it gets in his eyes a couple of times, and you're left to assume that it's long.
Okay.
But canonically, we don't know how long how Harry Potter cuts his hair. Like that. So I'm not sure what point I was making there. Something. Oh,
Okay.
hold on. He'll
Okay.
give it to me
By
again.
details that often come from non-film material.
Oh, non-film material is
Eh,
irrelevant. Warhammer 40K has a 20-year long history of rules and things, like of rules and shit that doesn't change. Of rules and shit within their storytelling. And not once, excuse me, and nobody, and I mean nobody, and nobody's really made like an official film about 40K. I think there have been like fan animated films, and then there might be animated films out there. I'm not sure. But like an actual mainstream like 40K film. Are you ahead of me?
am I?
Just skip from to 48 seconds.
48 seconds. Alright,
Rounds on the internet. It's
like right there.
Yeah, it skipped there.
take, right? You want your creators to have
Hold on.
as much freedom as they possibly can, and you don't want stories to get bogged down and held back by details that often come from non-film material. I'm bringing this up because I recently saw an article from IO9 making its rounds on the internet. It's titled "Our Fascination with Canon is Killing the Way We Value Stories," and there's
Hey, we talked about that last week.
Isn't. Yes, and no, it fucking isn't. If anything, it reinforces how much we value stories.
I agree. It reinforces how much we value stories because we value the worlds that the stories exist in.
I mean, I can understand where he's going about it limiting creativity, but the thing with Star Wars is that you have to follow certain rules. You can't just do things that might generate huge plot holes.
some truth in that, right? I've never been a hyper details oriented Star Wars viewer. Obviously, canon is important. Obviously, the history of our characters, the continuity of our stories, it makes the universe feel like a cohesive thing.
Yes.
A cohesive thing. Bitch, I believe the word you're looking for is cohesive whole. But yes, continuity is important. But I'm holding back something because he's about to give an example that will allow me to basically go through every statement he's made so far and destroy it.
But strictly adhering to canon and
Or adhering to details that do not matter to the narrative / hold back the new creative, fun, interesting ideas.
nothing else, and hamstringing yourself creatively based off of some arbitrary rules that came before, that feels so soul-crushing. You know, there's canon.
Yeah, but the job of a good writer, a good storyteller, can take an IP, any IP, and tell a good story with it. For example, just as an example, comic book writers do this all the time. Not much recently, but they used to. They used to take IPs. They used to take characters, IPs, worlds that existed long before them and tell good stories. Can you still hear me, Ryan?
Yeah.
Okay. Like they used to tell good stories. And they would tell good stories.
Okay.
That's you are praising essentially mediocrity. Greedo. You're praising mediocrity. You're saying I, as a creator, should not have to take the rules and previous events of a canon of a story into account before I write down whatever the fuck I want. That's
Well,
mediocre or bad storytelling. Good storytellers can take an IP, write it, and write it well, despite the rules presented them.
well, he has to make excuses so he can in order to defend the sequel trilogy. This is kind of a thing I noticed with some with like Last Jedi defenders. Like they have to really grasp at straws at a lot of times.
And like, Luke Skywalker is Darth Vader's son, right? Or Kylo Ren, Ben Solo is Han Solo's son, and Princess Leia's son. That's canon. We all love it. We all appreciate it. You don't care about canon?
Please do not strawman anyone around the. Please do not create strawmen for yourself, Hellogreedo. Defeating them only makes you look weak.
Come on, don't be disingenuous.
I'm not being disingenuous. I'm facing your arguments head on as you present them.
Yeah.
You have built this straw man.
Yeah.
And yet I stand next to it, simply holding my hands out, asking you, why aren't you addressing me?
When canon turns into like laws on what you can and can't do in your movie, in your story, especially when it's visual or based off of some piece of equipment or something that we've never seen in the franchise
Or New Force stuff.
Before, when it turns into strict adherence to laws, well then shit, I think some people have lost the heartbeat of Star Wars.
All right.
Yeah. Okay,
Ooh.
so yeah.
Let's walk away from Star Wars for a second. Just a second. Harry Potter.
Yeah, back to Harry Potter.
Can Wizard... Alright. So, I decide with the blessing of J.K. Rowling to write a new Harry Potter novel. But in my novel, wizards no longer need a wand to cast magic.
Mm-hmm.
They just do it. They don't need visual or they don't need to make hand motions, or they don't need to do rituals or anything. They just hold out their hand and fire comes from it, or whatever spell they want. They just have to they only need to will it into existence.
All right.
But then but if I were to write that book,
then it eliminates the whole purpose of the wand.
Exactly. Why do wands need to exist? Why couldn't wizards do this before? These are all questions that are legitimate and questions that should be asked. Wizards need It is a rule in the Harry Potter world. Wizards need wands to cast magic. Even in the films, this is true.
Well, I guess as Patrick Willems would put it, these are movies about Earth Jedi for children.
Oh.
Yeah, I struck a nerve there.
A little bit. Patrick Williams is an idiot.
But his videos are well shot. He walks around town while talking. That means he's intellectual.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I mean, so I can get what he's saying, but I mean, in telling like trying to do something different that has more creativity. But I think that works better as like some sort of Elseworlds or what if story.
If
Where,
but
but
let's be
not part
real
of.
here.
Yeah.
If you're really going that far off the canon material, you shouldn't be writing that IP. You either need to make up your own, or you need to set it in an Elseworld story, or you need to rework your story.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think it was. I think it was like on Smud Boy's podcast where he mentioned that like the Luke Skywalker being the way he is in the Last Jedi is more understandable if this was like a what if story. This isn't like the actual canonical continuation of the original trilogy.
Exactly. Like, if you write a story that blatantly disrespects what came before and the rules of the world you're playing in, basically, honestly, I think of fictional worlds as Gary's Mod,
As
as
what? As
people's private Gary's Mod servers, and they'll let
okay.
anybody in and see what they've done. Or actually, let Minecraft. Minecraft is a better example. There's people's like Minecraft servers. They'll let anybody in and see what they've done. But most of the time they'll have like you can't touch this, you can't do that, blah 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 blah. They'll have rules. Now if some hacker were to come in and start breaking those rules and maybe changing things in the canon in the around the world, well then it's no longer your work. But worse still, they've now broken something else.
Mm-hmm.
Like if they had an elaborate redstone city with like moving cars and something else, and someone decided to add a Death Star to it for no reason, like add a Death Star to the redstone network that would function and fire a laser or something. Well, now you've just broken the redstone network for the rest of the city. Now nothing really works the way it should.
Yeah. So
I want.
yeah, I haven't actually watched the entirety of this. I haven't really watched the entirety of this video before.
Uh,
Is he just going to try defending the hold-on maneuver? Is that the point of this video?
Hold on. We haven't gotten there yet. Spoilers, damn it.
Right, proceed.
Hello, worse than you. How are
Filmmakers,
you doing
authors,
today?
you name it, to have as much creative freedom as they possibly can. One of the best examples in modern Star Wars of kind of my mindset, to clarify it a little bit, is the Holdo maneuver.
There it is. Yep.
Yeah.
This man, I swear to God, is hell bent on defending this single maneuver. Is hell bent on defending this singular scene from the worst Star Wars movie ever. I don't get it. I don't understand why he stands upon this hill. Why is this the hill you choose to die on, Greedo? I don't
Well,
get it.
because he likes the Last Jedi, he has to fight for it, fight for its honor. It's like the fucking Battle of the Alamo. It's a losing fight, but he's gonna go down fighting.
All right. Let's hear what he has to say about the Holdo maneuver.
I thought the Holdo maneuver was great. It was a moment of self-sacrifice, and the way it was executed on screen was goddamn beautiful. But then you got people saying,
it broke the laws of the Star Wars universe.
Hey. But how did it make you feel?
Oh man, he actually said that.
Idiot. Okay.
How did it make me feel?
Okay, hold on. How far in are you? I'm at 226.
Yeah, I'm also at 227.
Okay. Greedo, how it made me feel is irrelevant. I'll tell you how I felt. I saw The Last Jedi twice. You were with me for one of them, Caesar.
I was with you for both.
Oh, shit. You were.
Hmm.
Saw it twice.
Yeah.
You know what the Holdo maneuver made me say the first time I saw it? Cool.
Yeah.
That was hands down the coolest scene I've ever seen in a Star Wars movie. And like my favorite scene from the prequels is hands down the Jedi battle. The
Which
Colosseum
one?
battle.
Yeah.
Because it's badass. But regardless, that doesn't mean it's a good scene.
Yeah.
Cinematically, sure, it's breathtaking.
Yeah, but that's a like the big thing about The Last Jedi. Like, there's a lot of things that are actually there. There's a lot of things to like about it. There's also a lot of really cool moments. The problem is that you have to not think about it.
Yeah, you have to not think about it. Like, you have to step back and say, "Oh, um, hmm, wait, why didn't someone try this before?"
Mm-hmm.
You had let's really look at this. Just let's for the moment keep this in The Last Jedi. For the moment, there were how many rebel ships? 3? 3 at the start of the movie.
I don't remember.
I don't really remember either. There were 3 rebel transports at the start of the movie, I think. Like a medical frigate and a couple of others. And the Radis, a
Mm-hmm.
capital ship. Why, Holdo? If you were going to do this, why, Holdo, did you not? Because don't bullshit me. They were always going to do this. Don't bullshit me and say no one could have possibly thought of this before.
Yeah.
Why then did no one turn one of those evacuated empty ships around
And then just ram right in.
and do it at the end of the movie, at the very beginning of the movie?
Okay, so another thing I'm trying to wonder. So it's been a while since I've seen the movie. So all she does is go. She goes into what
She goes into hyperspace.
Yeah, she goes to hyperspace at the ships. But even though in the Force Awakens, Ray and like Han did the same thing on the Falcon. They didn't destroy themselves. They just kind of went through a ship and went through an alien that was fighting at the cockpits. They didn't destroy themselves in the process.
When she bypasses the compressor?
No, that was after, I think.
Huh. I don't remember that scene from The Force Awakens. I don't really remember The Force Awakens except the massive plot hole about Anakin's lightsaber.
Yeah, a good question for another time, which we never
Fuck off.
got answered.
But still, like, look,
I mean,
it's fine that the scene is really cool. It looks great.
yes,
but it doesn't make any sense when you start to examine it.
Mm-hmm.
It's like looking at it's like looking at a pool. It's like, I don't know. It's like walking around in a kiddie pool.
Mm-hmm.
For a moment, it's fun.
All right.
But then you realize you're standing in like 3 inches of water, and it's just the enjoyment's gone.
How did it make you feel? It broke the laws of the Star Wars universe. Jesus Christ, I have zero desire to view any of the franchises that I love through some encyclopedic kaleidoscope of do and do nots.
I
want to know what franchise this guy loves besides Star Wars, so I can go through and say, what if this?
Yeah, I found it a bit ironic because I hear that Hellogreedo is actually very critical about the prequels, so it's finding it very interesting that then he'll at least make excuses for this movie.
And what laws are we talking about here? What canon, what details, what complaints? Well, Wikipedia says that when ships go into hyperspace, they're going into an alternate dimension. So a complaint that I've heard is that Haldo's ship would have ceased to exist in this dimension, and rather it would take a hyperspace lane in another dimension where contact with this dimension was impossible. And
Okay,
I actually didn't know that.
I didn't know that either, and I didn't really care.
I just assumed they were going super fast. I didn't think they were actually.
I had
Okay.
always assumed that it was some sort of alternate dimensional travel, but it didn't really matter. Because you know what?
What?
If someone could use this as a weapon, there have been enough wars and galactic conflicts in Star Wars, Legends and canon included, for someone to have considered this and attempted it.
Yeah, but how did it make you feel?
Irrelevant. You cannot tell me that this has not been tried before. You could not convince me. Star Wars has enough third-party material that literal, like, in Legends continuity, Sith ghosts can affect the physical world. They can.
Really? Really? Okay.
But they have to possess a living being to do it.
Okay, I was gonna say. I'm gonna say like the other, like Maul doesn't go around doing anything, or Dooku.
They have to possess a living being to do it. But they can affect the physical world.
Okay.
That is not. That is something that happens in Star Wars. But even stretching back to the very earliest Star Wars third-party material, Legends and canon included, together, which would be, I think, the Phantom Menace. Assuming assuming Disney hasn't touched the Old Republic at all.
Well, looks like they will be.
They will be, but for now, Disney hasn't touched the Old Republic. There have been, I think, let's see, the Great Galactic War, the Great Hyperspace War, the First Sith Empire, the Second Sith Empire, Revan's armies. He's first Great Galactic War with the sacking of Coruscant and everything. Yeah. There have been at least 5 conflicts in the Star Wars universe before the Phantom Menace. Then you have a 4 years long war where the primary enemies of the Republic are droids. Disposable, make them literally copy pasted droids. And you could not convince me, or you could not convince me that this had not been thought of before. In fact, I think in Clone Wars, there's a point where there is someone I think it's Anakin and Obi-Wan basically programmed vulture droids to kamikaze into something. You're really not going to tell me, Hellogreedo, that no one, not a single commander of of a vast droid army thought, hey, I can just kamikaze droids into enemy fleets and destroy and decimate them through hyperspace. Let's try kamikazing a droid through hyperspace and see what happens. Because if I kamikaze a droid through hyperspace, I've lost nothing, and it doesn't work. Well, I've lost nothing. If I kamikaze a droid through hyperspace and it does something, well, I've gained a new weapon. That's like, the need, the absolute inability to think about beyond how this made him feel.
Yeah.
Oh, fuck.
All right.
We're not even
Okay.
halfway through this video yet.
Okay. All right. So I guess I kind of have a question that. So so what? So how come nobody would ever think of? Why would nobody ever think of using hyperspace on another ship?
They wouldn't. At no point, I cannot think of a logical reason why no one would think of this. Further, I cannot think of a logical reason why people wouldn't be like, well, why the original inventors or discoverers of hyperspace would not be like, okay, well, what happens if two ships are coming across along the same hyperspace lane on opposing directions? What happens then? Well, let's see and find out. Like humans, most sentient species, even in the Star Wars universe, are curious enough to want to test something to its limits.
Okay. So what do you think would be a more logical take on the Holdo maneuver? Like what do you think would make more sense to happen if somebody did use hyperspace on a fleet of ships?
She would have, assuming we go by the Wikipedia, what we've seen from Wikipedia,
She would
or
have
just
she would have just gone through another dimension.
basically
When
she would have run off.
Yeah. Hmm.
Which, okay, that's not a bad idea. And if they wanted to go with the whole self-sacrificing thing, sure. But why not have her hyperspace out? Why not have all the other ships sort of hide in the shadow of the Radis? Have the Radis bamf out, be followed by this whole fleet, because we know from The Last Jedi, we know within the movie's internal logic, they're only tracking him from the Supremacy. So as soon as the Supremacy leaves, nobody's gonna stick around because they all think the Resistance has fucked off.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
they'll be like, and Hux will be like, oh, they're burning the last of their fuel.
Yeah. No, that's
Well,
what that's
time to kill.
yeah. Is I guess speaking of the Resistance, that's just one thing about the sequel trilogy that's bugged me since the beginning. And this isn't even like Ryan Johnson's fault. This is more, I guess, more Abrams, or not. Well, I guess Abrams. Just the concept of the Resistance. You'd think that they would be the military of the New Republic, but I guess they're apparently not. I mean, they just, they just want to completely recreate the events of the original trilogy. Like, Resistance is
Yeah,
it's just another name for rebellion.
yeah. You're right. Worse than you. They did treat it similarly to the warp. How the warp is treated in Warhammer 40k, but less tentacle rape. Less tentacle rape. We need to be clear about this. The Warhammer 40k warp is not the same as hyperspace, because hyperspace has less tentacle rape.
So Warp in 40k has tentacle monsters in it.
I mean,
You'll have
yes
you'll have
and no.
Is that they go into like a realm full of tentacle monsters?
Essentially, the warp is essentially the immaterium. Basically, it's a realm next to our own. It's a realm that runs parallel to our own, but it's a realm of thought and emotion.
Okay, what kind of emotion sets off tentacle rape?
Um, that's true. It does have Slanesh. That's true. Worse than you. It does have Slanesh. Basically, all right. Warhammer 40k badly summarized. So basically, there's these guys. They're called the Eldar. They're basically space elves. They
Okay.
rule the galaxy for about several thousand millennia. Well, in that time, because they're the dominant species, they get bored. And so they pull a Roman Empire and have. And so basically every Eldar becomes Caligula.
Okay.
And because Eldar are inherently psychic, like they're naturally more attuned to the warp or the immaterium, as it was in this time, or as the Eld ones called it, the realm of souls. Basically, they're super fine-tuned to this realm of thought and emotion. So much so that they could manipulate it to create beings out of it.
Okay, and so they created the tentacle monsters.
I mean, yes,
Out of okay.
because they fell into like the most extreme form of decadence you can think of.
Okay.
Yes, worse than you. When in Rome, bang Caligula. And so they basically tore a hole into the galaxy where the immaterium now spills out. And because of this, a new chaos god was born, and its name was Slanesh.
All right. Okay.
And basically churned the relatively calm, tepid waters of the immaterium into a roiling mass of insanity.
Okay.
So now there's tentacle monsters.
All right. So they just prey on people that are trying to teleport through the galaxy.
Basically, yes.
Interesting.
You when you hyperspace in Warhammer 40K, you pray to whatever god you want and hope that you come out the other side with your ship and your sanity still intact.
Okay.
It's big fun.
All right. Interesting.
All right. Moving on back to the video.
This is exactly the type of that I'm talking about.
Okay, I have a better question. Why did you change shirts? Why are you not sitting at your desk anymore?
Because I don't reshoots, I guess,
I guess.
or maybe pulling a Patrick Willems and wanting to look artsy.
Sorry, if that's what you're focusing on in this scene, again, losing the heartbeat of Star Wars.
I'm really not, but sure. Well, I'll concede that point to you. I, a Star Wars fan, have lost the heartbeat of Star Wars.
Let's face it, a lot of explanations for a lot of things in Star Wars came well after the fact when maybe someone decided there's a little need for an explanation, right?
Okay, sure.
Not everything needs to be explained.
Yes, that's true. Not everything needs to be explained.
But you need to specify what those certain things are.
Or you need to just not address those certain things. A good example. The movie The Santa Claus.
Okay.
It's general knowledge, and worse than you, I'm sorry if you are a young teen, a young person. Santa isn't real. General knowledge says that it's the parents that do things.
How dare you?
But instead of addressing that sort of conundrum, which the Santa Claus is a movie about a guy, a random toy maker, ironically enough, that becomes Santa.
Yeah, it's actually kind of dark and twisted when you think about it. Because once he puts on the suit, it's slowly.
I'm 20. I don't care. All right, where's the new? I'm sorry to have ruined your innocence.
Yeah. So, anyways, it's actually kind of creepy when you think about it, because like the Santa suit actually it slowly assimilates his brain. He slowly becomes Santa physically and mentally. Like there seems to be no At least in the first movie, there's no way of reversing it.
Yeah, but here's the thing. They never address the question of, well, what about the parents? Do parents not play Santa for their kids?
Yeah, I mean that's always one.
Like
That's
they,
always been something that bugs me about Christmas movies, where Santa is real, but society says he doesn't exist. Because you're kind of wondering, like,
yeah,
okay, where the fuck are these toys coming from?
like generally, the general, like the movie itself decides not to address this question because it pokes it because it sort of ruins the film.
All right, this Santa
Uh,
Claus movie is a fetish movie.
yeah, I see it.
People with like a Santa Claus fetish.
What fetish? Like what fetish?
I guess the turning old and obese fetish.
I guess
That's
I don't get it. Like,
that, I mean
is
that's
it
probably.
what fetish? I'm not sure I disagree with you is a thing, but it's
I
been
mean that. I mean
fucking
anything.
it's been fucking a decade since I watched the fucking Santa Claus. Good
I mean
lord.
I mean,
But still.
anything could be a fetish movie. I mean, Rule 34.
Yeah, that's true. No, not accounting for Rule 34. Let's be real. Anything could just be a fetish movie. You want to know what movie clips I watched like right before we went live
What?
and could be considered a fetish movie?
What?
Charlie and the Chocolate Factory.
Um.
The Tim Burton version.
Yeah, I know which one you mean.
Like
Uh,
like
like the
go and like watch like a single clip. Like they're online. Go and
so
like
just
like YouTube Charlie and the Chocolate Factory and just watch a single clip. And it's like, damn, that's
uh.
weirdly sexual.
I mean, I can see. I mean, I can see the part about like the fat kid Augustus getting covered in chocolates. I
Yeah,
can see
like
that.
or the skinny athletic girl that gets ballooned.
Oh yeah.
Um,
That the Mike TV, he gets his body permanently stretched out
exactly,
for some
exactly
reason.
worse than you, Blueberry Girl. All right,
Oh,
moving on.
yeah.
We're getting distracted. We need to we need to focus on the video.
Right? Some supplemental material came out explaining a thing that happened years ago in a movie. Another complaint that I've heard is, why isn't this method used all the time? Which, yeah, of course, right? But let's face it, if we start talking about why didn't they thises and why don't they do thoses in Star Wars, we'll be here for a very long time. And again,
Okay, provide examples. I can't think of any, but I'm 3 drinks in.
Yeah, I'm getting a little tipsy myself. So what was his argument again?
He's basically saying, "Oh yeah, he basically said, hold on. This is all right, hold on. There's an ad here that I think we need to address. Buy alert
It,
#1 stock to buy after market cash, and I'm fairly certain that's a picture of Alex Jones
wait, where?
in what the Watch Together.
Oh, I have ad block on.
Oh, yeah, I should probably turn that on. Whatever.
again, explanation
Hold on, let me go back and replay this.
that I've heard is, why isn't this method used all the time? Which, yeah, of course, right? But let's face it, if we start talking about why didn't they thises and why don't they do thoses in Star Wars, we'll be here for a very long time. And
Can you provide examples?
I mean, once again, I get where he's going, but
I also understand where he's going and what conclusion he's drawing.
Yeah, but this kind of feels like a false equivalence because this does open up a lot of questions.
Again, explanations come after the fact. Rise of Skywalker even touched on it, and I'm sure future material will.
Yeah,
I mean,
they said it was a
Rise of
1 in a
Skywalker.
million maneuver, which
Yeah,
basically means that
Rise of Skywalker filled in the plot hole.
yeah, they basically said it was a 1 in a million maneuver, or that meant it had so little chance of succeeding that Holdo was absolutely intending to run and she's a coward now. So much for your self-sacrificing narrative, Hellogreedo. Congratulations, you played yourself.
Touch on it too, and then we'll have new details and new laws and new explanations. This shit is always changing.
No, seriously. Your argument is basically, oh, canon always changes, but that's not necessarily true. It is for older properties, but they need to change with new writers coming in and new events or more detail being added, things like that.
Yeah, I mean, canon didn't actually change until like the entire EU was declared non-canon, right?
Exactly. This is why in the old Star Wars books, there's a comprehensive there's a timeline. There's a timeline of events. So there's a timeline of events. Like Lucasfilm basically went through all their old third-party material and said, "All right, this happens, then 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 this happens." Now you don't get it in the video games and the and the video games and stuff, but you sort of like from later novelizations put where things are going. Like the Revan novels takes place after KOTOR 1 and 2 because Mitra Surik, the main character from KOTOR 2, is in the Revan novel. And she's still alive, and she mentions Treya. She actually...
Yeah, I'm not too familiar with that time period.
I am, because it's my favorite time period.
Yeah, I hear good things about it. Like
But
the one thing that The Last Jedi did do right was actually make me more interested in Star Wars. More specifically, interested in what we lost from Disney declaring the EU non-canon.
explained years ago, yet there was books explaining it literally a day before the movie came out. Did the novelization come out before the movie? Worse than you? For The Last Jedi?
Let's look it up. Jedi. The Last Jedi. See, it's called The Last Jedi Expanded Edition. It came. Let's see. This book was
Try
published.
novelization.
Yeah. Let's see. It looks like it came out in like March of 2018.
Yeah,
So
that's a
within
little...
a few months after the movie.
That's a little after the movie, yeah. Makes sense. They need the movie to... They at least need the script of the movie to be public so they can write the novel.
Mm-hmm.
Spoilers and all that.
I've heard more complaints too, but for the sake of brevity, most are along the same lines, right?
Okay. Why aren't you addressing any of the issues posted then?
Well, that would challenge his narrative. You have to.
And I've heard counter arguments that talk about like a ship's wake, right? Like a boat's wake, but a hyperspace wake. Weaponizing a powerful wake. Like if you're in your kayak and some asshole in a big boat blew by you, going too fast and too close. You might spill your beer or take a dip in the drink. But this is all just details.
What does that have to do with anything?
It's speculation, but you're still not addressing the main argument. Why wouldn't someone have thought of this before? Further, why wouldn't this be a frequent tool used? And if we're going with the Rise of Skywalker's thing, a Skywalker, why wouldn't they assume that Holdo was a coward and just attempting to flee the field after the failure of her plan?
Who knows?
Again, I've never been a hyper details oriented Star Wars viewer because when that kind of stuff is focused on, instead of like the emotional impact of a narrative, it bogs things down for me. That's
All right. Is Qui-Gon Jinn's death less impactful because of Jar Jar Binks' existence in the narrative of Star Wars The Phantom Menace?
Nope.
Is the fact that Darth Maul speaks, I think, one line in the whole movie less impactful on his intimidation factor?
I'm going to say no. I haven't sat through that full
He's-
movie in a long time.
I'm getting their emotional impact is good.
Yeah.
Narrative is Attack of the Clones still a bad movie, or at least a nonsensical one?
I would. I mean,
I honestly, I would
watched.
call Attack of the Clones mediocre.
Yeah, I mean, I saw the movie recently. It's not bad, but it's definitely not. It's definitely no masterpiece.
Yeah, I would call the Attack of the Clones a mediocre movie, despite having some of the coolest shots in Star Wars.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I mean, there's things that I like about it that I do feel a little emotionally invested in. Like I actually kind of for how short Count Dooku is, I actually kind of grew to really like him.
Yeah,
He's not just one dimensionally evil.
like the narrative surrounding these moments is just as important as their impact.
So yeah, I mean, like I said, like I do get some emotional investment with Count Dooku, but that doesn't take away that the movie is still like you
Middling
said,
to bad.
mediocre movie.
supplemental stuff. That is supplemental stuff. You don't need it. You don't.
I agree. But then why does Disney and why do people like you, Hellogreedo, throw this up as a defense for The Last Jedi and The Force Awakens, and why do you throw it up as a defense for the sequel trilogy?
I don't know.
You might want to talk to the other people defending this trilogy and say, "Hey, the supplemental material is irrelevant. Defend the movie on its own merits." But the problem is, if they start defending the movie on its own merits, the movies themselves don't have any. They're bad.
I mean, yeah, this could be purely coincidental, but I just find it interesting that it seems like everybody that defends the Last Jedi is a very far lefty. I mean, I don't find it as SJW as some people make it out to be, but it's so weird that it just seems like everybody who defends it has very far left leanings.
Don't. It's just there for some fun information, right? The heartbeat of Star Wars is not in the tiny, inconsequential detail.
Hold on. I think Worse Than You posted a rant.
Oh.
Might I add she didn't say anything about her plan to her crew? Yes, absolutely. You can add that.
Yeah, not too
Greedo,
familiar
you
with.
literally have a channel clowning on the prequels because the books, games, and TV shows make them better as a whole. You fail to address any flaws in the new Disney movies and shows. Correct. The
Yeah, I mean,
Disney books are terribly written, and the only passable one is the first Battlefront book.
Yeah, I
I
got no
don't think. Okay,
Oh.
Worse Than You. Hold on. I'll let you finish, Brian, before I.
Caesar.
Caesar, fine.
Uh, yeah, I was gonna say I'm not too familiar with the Disney books. All I know is that I guess the first one written by Chuck Wendig just has a whole bunch of like dashes throughout the whole film. I mean, I actually found the book at like a Barnes and Noble and just skimmed through it, and yeah, there's like hyphens all throughout the book. So weird.
Hmm.
And like he's apparently a guy who he has like books on how to be a good writer. So I just find that kind of ironic.
Ah.
I've even looked at like that books like reviews on Amazon, and most of the criticism is just the book is just how horribly written it is. Not necessarily the story, just the writing itself.
The writing style and
Yes,
grammar and shit.
yeah, like freaking Dishonored Wolf had made a video about the book
Hmm.
where he reads like reads quotes from it out loud. He just whenever there's a dash, he just straight up says dash.
Okay,
Uh,
worse than you. The Battlefront book you're mentioning. Is it about a rebel commander who meets like imperial like logistics specialist? I need to know. Because if that's what you're talking about, you're right. That is a great book. I loved it. If it's not, then I might have a recommendation for something you should read. Anyway, that being said, that being addressed, worse than you is absolutely correct. The Disney book, uh, as addressing the rest of the Disney books, I liked Phasma. Phasma was well written. Phasma was well written. I don't think that's a Disney book. Actually, worse than you. Phasma I thought was well written, but I mean, that's because let's be real, the author is working with a cardboard cutout and could have give and like just gave it depth.
mm-hmm.
Plus
Yeah,
the introduction of Cardinal and Mary Sue, I guess. I think
yeah. Have you
the
ever actually seen? Oh,
the
sorry.
spy in Phasma is a bit of a Mary Sue, but she has so little of the book to herself that it's largely irrelevant.
Yeah, ever seen like the deleted scenes of the Last Jedi? Like
No.
some of them, like I've seen like one or two of them. Like they're actually pretty good. Like especially the one with Phasma, where Finn just straight up tells the other stormtroopers that Phasma turned off the shields on Starkiller Base, and then she immediately turns around and kills her troops. Like that actually gave her some personality.
Yeah. And the book makes her a bit of a Mary Sue, it does, but like it
Yeah, yeah. So I mean, so I guess going back to Phasma. So
I don't
essentially,
actually know. She's not a Mary Sue. I would not call her a Mary Sue
so,
in
like,
her book. She just
yeah,
has depth. She has a character.
this is Phasma you're talking about.
Yeah. She's
Yeah.
fucking
So
ruthless, dude.
yeah, that's one thing. I don't think I've ever heard a TLJ defender try to defend like killing off Phasma without really knowing anything about her. Like they'll defend Snoke to their dying breath, but Phasma, I've never heard anybody acknowledge like wasting her as a villain as well.
Yeah.
I mean, she could have been
And
interesting.
laws
She could have.
and rules that do not impact a narrative that you might find skimming through a Millennium Falcon schematic book. Those details are fun, don't get me wrong, they're fun, but they're supplemental, and god damn it, they have changed so often over the years.
Oh,
Okay.
hey, back to the other stuff.
Provide examples. This is a video essay. Hey, anyone. I could okay, if I was to do this video, if I was to do this thing, I would provide examples where canon has where things like that have changed. I would look that up. I would be like, okay, what does this say? What is this? Okay, what does this supplemental material say versus this supplemental material? Okay, that's evidence of details changing with new writers. and that's fine. That helps your argument, Greedo. I'm trying to help you, Greedo. Help me to help you.
Oh, actually, didn't know Rogue One had a novelization.
I think all the stories.
Yeah. Yeah. So, are the characters more fleshed out in the book version?
Generally, yes.
Yeah.
Generally everything. I would say the books are better than films. Like just as a general rule,
Mm-hmm.
because the authors of the book don't like they can watch the film and get a copy of the script, and basically go, okay, this scene needs a little bit more detail, fluff, more character development, more character interaction, things like that.
Hmm. Yeah, that was definitely one thing the Rogue One movie was lacking. I actually did kind
Character
of
in
like,
general.
yeah. Because other than that, I actually do kind of like the movie. Or I like the last act of the movie when they're on the beach planet.
I mean, okay, I have a question though. Why
What?
is the Empire so limp-dicked in Solo?
What?
Like the Empire's super irrelevant, like super not functional in Solo. Well, or at least according to the opening title PowerPoint, it's a lawless time. The Empire has no power or whatever.
I don't know. I've never
I
seen
don't
Solo.
I don't know.
But yeah, that's one thing. One thing I really liked about Rogue One is that actually the Empire felt like a threat. They were
They did.
actually like
They did feel like a threat in Rogue One.
yeah. Yeah, it's like when the Death Star comes into view, you just get that huge oh shit moment.
Yeah.
Like it hits you emotionally, but it actually I at least I believe it actually it earned it. Unlike the Last Jedi,
Yeah.
even though the characters are bland, you still feel bad for Jin and Cassian when they die. And
How
it's like
bad is it that of all the Disney Star Wars, the best we can say is that Rogue One is mediocre?
yeah, I don't know. Yeah, pretty much.
Like, cause let's be real, JJ was never gonna answer any questions. I don't care if he got on all three movies and directed the whole trilogy all the way through. He was never gonna give any answers to the questions we really needed.
Yeah. I don't know how to comment on that. I'm not familiar with his mystery box storytelling. I just,
It's
I
it's
just hear
bad.
that. Yeah, I just kind of hear that like
Literature Devil has a video basically breaking down why the mystery box doesn't work.
oh yeah.
Something like the Holdo maneuver in all of its visual awesomeness
Why have we changed back to this?
I back to the original cut of the video
God damn it!
before the
and
reshoots. I don't know.
Godspeed Rebels breaks the quote-unquote laws of the universe, then hey, let's break some more laws.
Is he going to show examples?
No, don't break laws because that's bad.
All right.
Can you hear that?
Hear what?
Whatever. I'll address it in a minute.
Okay.
You know, after a Star Wars movie comes out, I tend to do what a lot of you guys do. I go down a rabbit hole of reviews on YouTube and reading some critic and audience scores on Rotten Tomatoes. And oftentimes, the review...
Yes, because reviews and Rotten Tomatoes scores are a wholly accurate examination of the film's quality.
Well, usually it is, except for select films that please the critics like hipster mentality.
Fair enough.
Like we can
Viewers.
we can probably universally agree that like the Michael Bay Transformers movies are bad.
They are. They're fun though.
Yeah, exactly. They're fun.
So much fun.
Yeah, yeah. I've always kind of they've been as like an actual fan of the Transformers franchise. I've always they've been a guilty pleasure of mine for years.
I've always placed them in that category of their mindless 80s action movies. Like when I first started realizing that they were not very well, they're not quality movies, I put them in that realm of, oh, it's just mindless 80s action.
Yeah, I mean,
Enjoy the explosions.
Yeah, I mean, yeah. Some people will try to say like the original '80s movie, like the cartoon movie, is actually really good. I would argue not really. I mean, it's a fun film to watch, but it definitely has its problems. And just the fact that they kill off like half the cast from the cartoon series because they wanted to make way for a new toy line. Just imagine like your favorite cartoon gets a theatrical movie, and the movie's not about them, it's about new characters, and the old characters you like, half of them are killed off and the other half are either barely in it or just like a small handful of them make frequent appearances.
True enough. I
Like the
haven't seen the original 80s one. I don't think. I
I
might
would,
have, but
I'd recommend it. It's still a
it's
fun
been a
movie.
while. Worse than you. If you take all the Star Wars stuff out of Rogue One, you would have a passable sci-fi movie? I can say that. Yeah. I agree. If Rogue One wasn't a Star Wars movie, it would be a passable sci-fi movie.
Yeah, but what would you use to fill in the Death Star? Like
Just make it a heist movie. A sci-fi heist movie. Nobody's done that.
nobody's done that.
I don't think so. Not in mainstream, at least.
All right, let's keep going.
Who harp on canon or an abundance of details, rarely, if ever, talk about the emotional impact of a scene or a story.
All right, let's talk about the emotional impact of a scene or a story then.
All right, you go first.
Hold on. Qui-Gon Jinn's death, since I've mentioned it before. Qui-Gon's death is emotionally impactful. We've gotten invested in this character. We like him. He's wise. He's seems to know what he's doing. He's strong. It seems like he's sort of he's fucking Mufasa. Like that's the best equivalent. He's Mufasa only in Star Wars.
Mufasa.
Yes, he's Mufasa.
Interesting analogy.
Only in Star Wars.
Yeah, I guess. Yeah, all we're missing is seeing Obi-Wan seeing his ghost.
Yeah, and
just Obi-Wan just goes outside and just sees Qui-Gon up in the sky looking down at him.
And yeah, and so his death is emotionally impactful. It hurts. I don't like watching the duel between Qui-Gon Jinn and Obi-Wan, despite the fact that I like the duel between Qui-Gon Jinn and between Qui-Gon Jinn and Obi-Wan, because it's a really, really cool duel and has some really, really cool shot scenes. But that doesn't mean the emotional impact of the story is irrelevant. Let's use his example. Holdo's maneuver. The Holdo maneuver looks really cool. Emotionally, it's a really breathtaking wow scene, but Holdo's such a flat, unappealing character to most people.
Like she's not very I don't really feel bad for her when she died.
I don't feel bad for her. I don't feel anything for her. It's just a cool scene.
like a lot of people said, Poe did nothing wrong. I can understand her keeping quiet the whole time if out of fear that there was a spy on board or something like that, or there's a mole like giving away information at a remote distance. But all they had to do was just explain that, like after Holdo overthrows his mutiny, she like grabs him and takes him away and actually talks to him in private about why she's been keeping quiet. If you do that, then yeah, it makes Holdo the one who's in the right and Poe's wrong. They don't do that though. They don't really explain it at all. So it does look like Poe's the one who was right the whole time.
Poe was in the right the whole time.
So I think you cut out.
Poe was in the right the whole time.
Yeah, you're cutting out.
Poe was in the right the whole time.
Yep.
The sequel trilogy is like Hunt Down the Freeman for Half-Life, as in the story doesn't make sense, broken on launch, and I want my refund. I know that feel. Worse than you. I know that feel.
It's like an
We're 2 minutes out. We're 2 minutes out from this, and we'll finally be done.
Yay.
algorithmically generated analysis. A detective
Examining a thing's story does not mean it does not have emotional impact. Examining the... Let's talk about... Alright, I was hoping not to address this and not to talk about this since I haven't seen it all the way through. But Game of Thrones, Season 8.
Oh. Yeah, I haven't watched Season 8 at all.
Would you say... Have you seen Mahler's Unbridled Rages about it?
I might have months ago. I don't think I've seen the entirety of it. Knowing how it ends just kind of killed my interest in Game of Thrones.
Like, knowing how it ends, does that make Arya's, like, anyone's death before Season 8 less emotionally impactful?
Less impactful? Not really.
Exactly. The story falls apart. The story is bad, but the emotional impact is still there. You know why? Because people get emotionally invested in characters. But if they step back and examine something as objective as, like, oh, well, if I step back and say, well, why is this? Why is X? Why is Y? Why is X doing X thing with X? Why? What is the reason for this event? Why does this happen? What internal logic compels this character to do this? That kind of thing does not negate the emotional impact you have for a character. An example is a book series, one of my favorite book series, is Sandman Slim. Sandman Slim, the main character of Sandman Slim, is an asshole. I like him because he's an asshole. If I were to go back through each of these books and begin to objectively examine things, I would probably find several problems. Because no story is perfect, obviously. But that doesn't negate the fact that I like Sandman Slim, and there are several emotional impacts, that emotional gut punches throughout the story that get to you.
detective board spread out in front of you with red yarn connecting various details to make sure things are in line. And that kind of bums me out. And that's honestly why if I'm...
I mean,
Good
not
for
really.
you, that's your opinion.
It's a sign of good writing, though. if things line up right.
Exactly.
You gotta treat your story like it's like I think like I said the last time we talked about this. Like you have to treat the story like it's a true story.
Exactly.
Obviously, still have fictional elements, but the story itself, character decisions, all that has to be grounded in reality to be to be more.
In the
Uh,
reality of the world, at the very least.
yeah, like only if you can get away with it if you're writing something like Alice in Wonderland, which is deliberately batshit weird and insane.
Exactly.
But like Star Wars always seemed to take itself seriously despite the goofy concepts.
Mm-hmm. Like, and the reason Alice in Wonderland works is because it's a fish out of water story. Like, in a horror movie, you, the person, the person watching, may conclude logically that someone shouldn't do something. For example, don't open this door, don't grab that knife, blah blah blah. Horror movie cliches, that kind of thing. But to the person within that, grounded in that reality, these may not seem like logical decisions.
I mean, yeah, some psycho dude's coming at me. Yeah, I'm going to grab a knife and threaten him with it.
I mean, like, yeah. For example, in Scream, like, we, the audience, know that I assume, I haven't seen Scream, know that the sisters in the frat are in the sorority are going to die.
Oh, is that the second Scream?
I don't
Because
know. I
that's
haven't ever
definitely
seen Scream.
the characters are in
Any
high
of them.
school in the first one.
Huh?
Yeah, the second one. The first one, the characters are in high school. The second one, they're in college.
Oh. Well,
And the third one, they're out on their own.
when's the moment that they Scream calls them from within inside the house?
From within the house.
Yeah.
I don't know. Depends on which movie. I haven't seen any of the movies in a long time myself.
Anyway, but like there's a moment where it's, oh, don't answer the phone. Don't answer the phone. He's calling you to distract you from so he can kill you. That's what the audience sees. That's our logic. We know more information than the characters. But
Yeah,
the characters hear the phone ringing and logically conclude, "Hey, we should answer the phone."
Yeah, it's kind of ironic that you brought up Scream, since the whole film series is about, I guess, a quote unquote deconstruction of horror movie
Oh,
tropes.
Scream 1. Thank you, worse than you.
Yeah, Scream 1.
I'm going to watch a Star Wars movie review on YouTube, I prefer to watch them from, regular movie reviewers, not just Star Wars movie reviewers or Star Wars YouTubers or people who talk about Star Wars constantly on YouTube because, it can be topical at times.
I don't know. I think it's better to hear it from passionate fans instead of just normie moviegoers.
I disagree. I think he's in the right here and taking his information from multiple sources.
Okay.
But I'm being charitable. I feel nice. We're at 6 minutes and this is only 7.
Oh, Lord. Hey, at least we're.
I prefer to watch Star Wars movie reviews from like Chris Stuckman or Jeremy Johns.
Yeah,
I would not point to the Stuckman for an objective movie critique. Isn't Jeremy Johns from Geeks and Gamers?
No, that's different Jeremy.
Okay.
Jeremy Johns is this whole other guy.
Okay. I was just curious because I thought that was his name.
No.
Agree or disagree, I find their opinions to be a much more pure look at those movies as movies, not lined up against some laws or things that some fans might think the films or the movies or the stories or the visuals or whatever need to adhere to. Again.
But the movie itself cannot be taken in a vacuum. It is a Force Awakens, Last Jedi, Rise of Skywalker are inherently sequels to the OT. The prequels could do something like that. They could have this sort of creative freedom and do whatever the fuck you want, basically. There were implications in the OT about, like, oh, the Jedi were warriors of peace and justice and blah, blah, blah. But not really a lot. Not a lot. Not really enough that it would necessitate like what they did for the prequels. But the sequels are following 6 movies of established properties and rules. They're not to be taken in a vacuum. You can't take them in a vacuum. Examining each movie on an individual basis is fine, but you also have to examine them as a sequel. For example, the Lord of the Rings trilogy. The Two Towers is arguably the weakest movie out of all 3.
I imagine a lot of people would disagree, but
I honestly, Return of the King's probably weaker, but
oh man, oh dude, don't shit talk Return of the King.
I'm not a Lord of the Rings fan. I don't care.
Heresy.
Level of fucks given 0.
All right, keep going. I'll hear you out.
But all right, for the moment, let's assume that Two Towers is the weakest movie. Taken in examined on its own, Two Towers is the weakest movie, for the sake of argument.
All right.
Taken as a part of a trilogy, it's a perfectly serviceable movie.
Okay.
But you could still examine something you can examine something in a vacuum, but you have to take into account that yes, this is part of something bigger. So it needs to follow the general rules of that universe.
Yeah. Since it's a continuing story rather than like some kind of episodic, like an actual episodic series.
An anthology.
Yeah.
Again, I think it's more pure. And what laws are we talking? Every Star Wars movie.
Okay. What was that?
Him going. I think he just fucked up what he was going to say, but kept it in there just for laughs.
That's ever come out has done new stuff that people bitched about that kind of trampled on the previous movies, right? It's always been the thing.
Provide examples.
Restricting creative freedom for new fun and inventive ideas because of some wishy-washy, loosey-goosey Star Wars laws sounds like the most soul-killing knife in the heart of a franchise thing I can imagine.
And yet, even with 6 movies, by the way, there were still games and books and comics that came out that were really, really good, that didn't break from the laws of Star Wars and still provided new Force abilities, new characters, new emotional impacts. Hell, KOTOR 1 and 2 are basically KOTOR 2 at the very least is a breakdown of the Jedi and Sith codes and explaining their flaws.
So basically like The Last Jedi, but done right.
Correct.
Artistic freedom!
Well,
that's kind of one thing. One thing is interesting about the Jedi, about Luke's commentary on the Jedi Order. think someone at EFAP had brought this up. Just if Luke doesn't like how the Jedi Order, like what the Jedi Order was, then he's free to change it however he pleases. Because
Exactly.
isn't that what he does in the old expanded universe?
He does. He changes a lot of the Jedi Order.
Yeah.
He basically throws out the Jedi Code and I think he throws out the Jedi Code. I'm not super in touch. I'm not super familiar with past with past Return of the Jedi like works. Apparently his check from Disney's in the mail.
Ooh.
All those R2-D2 jetpack legs would have been really convenient
In the original trilogy.
Yeah, that is a plot hole in the prequels that
Yeah.
R2 doesn't have a rocket. That is a stupid thing.
That is an example of something. Oh
Yeah.
God, he wrote a book.
Sorry about the mess.
The origin story, why Star Wars, clickbait, and social media, YouTube, my top 10 movies, United States Navy, video games, being a dad, supporter Q&A, in closing. What?
I guess it's just about his I guess it's an autobiography.
I guess. Fuck it.
And,
Whatever. We're
and now
moving on.
Now I've got the Village People song stuck in my head. In the Navy.
All right. That was bad.
Yeah.
It's a good thing we don't do more than one of these per podcast. I don't think I could take it. I don't, and I'm glad I didn't choose Movie Bob.
Oh god, yeah, I did. Yeah, like the one that EFAP recently did. That's a very interesting look inside the man's psyche. It's yeah, that's a
Anyway.
yeah.
Well, thank you, Caesar, for joining me on this episode of Academic Alehouse.
Well, we're done now.
Yes, we're done now.
Alrighty.
Thank you, Worse Than You, for showing up and interacting in the chat. By the way, there should be, I'm not sure about this, not 100% sure. There should be a Discord link in the description.
Ooh, gonna start letting people jump onto our Discord.
I've started an Academic Alehouse Discord. So just for people to come, hang out, chat, play video games, whatever.
Okay.
So yeah, there's that. Anyway, thank you all so much for watching. Y'all have a nice, I hope y'all are doing well. See you next week. Possibly on Monday. I mean, not this coming Monday, but next Monday.